Welcome to The Explainer. We're about to dive into a quest that's been going on for over a century, a really serious and, let's be honest, pretty controversial search for hard proof of psychic abilities. I mean, think about it. Could your mind move an object or see something happening miles away? For centuries, people have been absolutely captivated by these questions, and it's led to a whole field of study that sits right on the very edge of science. Okay, so to really get into this, we have to start with the basics. What exactly are we talking about here? What is this field that's looking for these extraordinary phenomena?
At its heart, parapsychology is all about trying to use the rigorous tools of science. We're talking controlled experiments, hard statistics, peer review, and pointing them at things that seem, well, impossible. Things like ESP, psychokinesis, you name it. It's basically an attempt to measure the unmeasurable.
And you're going to hear this term a lot, psi. Researchers came up with it because, let's face it, psychic power sounds a little bit out there. So psi is just this neutral, scientific-sounding placeholder for whatever that unknown thing is they're looking for, that signal that can't be explained by our normal five senses.
So, the serious hunt for psi really kicked off way back in the late 1800s. But it wasn't in the 1930s that things got really interesting. That's when one man at Duke University decided he was going to try and drag the paranormal out of the dark, spooky seance parlors and into the bright, sterile light of a science lab.
And as you can see, this field went through a wild evolution. It starts out in 1882 with these scholarly societies investigating ghost stories. Then, boom! In the 1930s, it's in university labs, getting all academic. And then it gets really wild. By the late 20th century, the US government was secretly pouring millions of dollars into something called the Stargate project to see if they could use remote viewers to spy on their enemies. Seriously.
So, the crucial thing to understand about Rhine is that his goal was to get rid of the stories. You know, the "my aunt saw a ghost" kind of thing. He wanted cold, hard numbers. He was looking for a small but persistent signal of psi that was measurable, repeatable, and statistically undeniable. His most famous tool was this, the Zener card deck. And the logic was beautifully simple. You've got 5 symbols, so if you're just guessing, you're going to be right about 20% of the time, 1 in 5. But, and this is the whole key, if someone over thousands and thousands of trials consistently guessed right 22, 23% of the time, that tiny little margin, if it was real, would be proof of something beyond our known senses.
Now, that simple card guessing test was really just the beginning. It paved the way for way more sophisticated experiments, but they were all designed with one single goal in mind, to completely isolate this supposed psi signal from our 5 normal senses.
This led to something called the Ganzfeld experiment, and it became a modern cornerstone for this kind of research. The theory is actually pretty cool. It's like our senses create so much mental noise, it's like a loud rock concert in your head. And if there's a faint telepathic whisper, you're just never going to hear it. So the Ganzfeld experiment tries to turn off the concert, create a blank canvas for the mind, and hope that psi signal can finally be heard.
And the results? They were tantalizing. When researchers combined the data from dozens of these studies, they found a hit rate of 32.2%. Now you might think, okay, chance is 25%, 32 isn't that much more. But here's the thing about statistics. Over thousands of trials, the odds against that happening by pure luck are astronomical. This was exactly the kind of data that made the field think, we've got something here, a real, measurable signal. But you know how it goes. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary scrutiny. The wider scientific community started picking these experiments apart, and they began to find that maybe this psi signal was just, well, a ghost in the machine. Critics pointed to all sorts of subtle problems. Sensory leakage was a huge one. Was it possible the subject could see a tiny reflection of the card in the researcher's glasses or hear a whisper? Then there was the massive issue of the file drawer problem. Think about it. If 10 labs run a study and only one gets an exciting result, what if only that one study gets published? The overall picture gets totally skewed.
And this slide, well, this highlights the field's most damaging problem, outright fraud. And look at the timeline. We've got simple signal codes in the 1880s all the way to sophisticated data manipulation in the 1970s by J.B. Rhine's own hand-picked successor. These scandals showed that some of the most famous proofs of psi were just people cheating.
Yeah, this quote pretty much captures the growing feeling about the whole thing. It seemed like the psi effect was a really shy phenomenon. It had this funny habit of just disappearing whenever stricter controls were put in place.
So, after more than 130 years of this, thousands of experiments, millions of trials, what did the mainstream scientific community finally conclude? This was a landmark judgment. One of the most prestigious scientific bodies on the planet reviewed all the evidence and found it, well, completely lacking. Their verdict came down to two major failures. There was no reliable, reproducible evidence, and there was no plausible theory for how psi could even work. So in response to this, mainstream science created a whole new field, anomalistic psychology. And what's fascinating is that it studies the exact same experiences, seeing a ghost, feeling a premonition, but it flips the starting assumption. Instead of searching for a paranormal cause, it looks for the normal, psychological reasons behind why we have these strange feelings.
And this is probably the biggest hurdle of all. For physicists, for psi to be real, our most fundamental understanding of how the universe works would have to be just wrong. Core principles, like the conservation of energy, or the simple fact that a cause has to happen before its effect, you'd have to just throw them all out.
And so we arrive at the modern consensus. A pseudoscience isn't necessarily about fraud. It's about a field that uses the language of science but fails to play by its most important rule. You have to be willing to abandon ideas that consistently fail to find evidence. And yet, despite this verdict from the scientific community, polls show that belief in the paranormal is as strong as it's ever been. So what is going on here? This suggests that this whole enduring quest for psi might tell us less about the hidden forces of the universe and a lot more about the hidden needs of the human mind, our need for meaning, for connection, and for a sense that there's more to reality than what we can see.
And that really is the final fascinating question, isn't it? Is the search for psi just a modern, scientific-sounding version of a really ancient human impulse to find magic in the world? It's a question that touches on the very nature of belief, the limits of evidence, and of course the enduring power of mystery.